Welcome back, guys. This is Kimberly Graham, your co-host of the Affluent Marriage Podcast, and we're so excited to have you here for the continuation of our previous episode. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you guys know that you can follow us and converse with us at the Affluent Marriage Pod on Instagram. That's where you can find us to connect with us, like our content, share our content, any of those types of things, but we also want to hear your stories there as well. So excited for the new stuff that you're going to learn from today's episode, and without further ado, let's get back to the show.
How about this one? All right, we've got another fear here. Another common money fear. Fear of not being able to save enough money for retirement or other long-term goals.
I definitely, just to kind of level the playing field, I feel this fear, right? Because where we are, like, I will tell you, and I've told people plenty of times, investing is not something that I'm like, yeah, which is why, again, I said earlier, why real estate is something that is appealing to me. I can see it grow in real time, and I can see my money in real time. You can't see that in investing. You have hope.
Right, because everyone tells you, hey, 30 years from now, 30 years from now, 30 years from now. And I know some of you are sitting here thinking, well, the reason I have this fear is because I don't have 30 years.
Right, yeah. Like there's a whole host of other things that can happen. And again, I have to go back to that thing where I'm like, okay, like I am okay. I can only manage when I can manage, and I can manage today, or I can manage this month. What can I do this month to alleviate this fear? Because I can't foresee what's going to happen in 30 years. And there's a lot of people who will either say, well, forget it. It's just not going to happen for me.
I'm already 47. I'm already 52. Like I've only got like 10 or 15 years before I have to retire. And I might even have to work a couple years after that. Like,
what's the point of even attempting to invest or save, right?
It's kind of like people with their credit score, right? Mm-hmm. If they see their credit score drop into like the 400s, they're like, well, my credit score already sucks. So what's the point?
Might as well
Why try to raise it? Like, let's just whatever.
Yep. When we just have this like give up mentality. And so there's that camp, but then there's the other camp where they're like, okay, but yeah, I might be 40, but I still have this many years. How can I make the best? How can I manage what I can manage?
Even if you're 60, shoot, you still got 5 years, 6 years.
You still can manage what you can manage, right?
That's a long time.
And be proud of what it is, right? Why are we so hell-bent on focusing on everybody else's grass and focusing on, oh, well, she has more time than I do, so she's going to do it so much better, or so much, she's going to have so much better of an experience than I will, so I'm not even going to try it. Like, she's not you.
Question for you.
Yeah?
How many years did it take for us to pay off our mortgage?
8.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years. And how many years did it take us to pay off $76K?
28 months. So it's 2.5 years.
So for someone to sit there and say, oh, well, I'm 60, I only have 5 years left. Like, yeah, well, you can pay off your mortgage in 5 to 8 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you can pay off $76,000 in student loans in 2.5 years. We did that on $30K a piece. Mm-hmm. We made $60,000 a year, and we made that happen. Mm-hmm. And for the better part of this mortgage, we were both educators. You didn't start becoming a financial coach until about 3 years ago.
Right.
So you need to figure out like all these other fears. Where is this coming from? Did your parents not retire well? Are you getting older? And listen, you need to think, what is it that you can manage to do this well, right? Is it your expenses? Is that what you're afraid of? Like, you have a lifestyle that you want to
That's really what
uphold.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Like, if I retire today, I won't have Social Security or pension or all that I need to live the lifestyle that I have now. Mm-hmm. Well, your life, that's the reality.
Right.
So you need to reduce your expenses, right? And if you know you've got 5 years, then reduce your expenses now to save up as much as you can, so that you can retire a little bit better. Even just 5 years
can do so much.
You can do so much.
I think here's the deal too. What you just mentioned is that talking to like a 50-year-old, let's just say, saying like, hey, you still have time that you can like start investing, but it means that you have to change things. You have to change the way you're viewing your spending, your impulsivity, your perspective on finances. And it's not the money that's the issue, because put it in the hands of somebody else and they will be like, I got it. I'm going to do it. And I'm going to pay this debt off. And like, they can make those decisions. It's harder for you in your situation, regardless of how old you are. I'm just using this as an example, because your mindset says, I am this age, therefore I should have these things. Therefore, I should be able to do these things with ease. So I'm going to be stubborn in where I am. Last, that entitlement. I am entitled to believe that because I am this age, these are the things that I should have. And because I don't have it, I'm going to throw a hissy fit and be a toddler and say, well, if I can't have these things like all of my friends have, then I guess, I'm not going to do this. Right. And I'm like, what's the alternative? You're going to continue feeling like crap and not have an investment, not have any type of retirement. And you're going to be in the exact same situation as you are for the next, however many years to retirement, or you can buck up for the next, 4 years, get rid of your debt, start investing, and be in a better position in 4 years. It's up to you.
And if your friends have that kind of stuff, then either they won with money and they're doing really well and good for them, or they're just as dumb, broken, stupid as you are trying to buy that stuff.
Oh, look at that.
So think about who your friends are. If that's, hey, if you want to fly with the eagles, don't swim with the ducks. We talked about that. All right.
Got a little spicy there. But I do see that, not just with just across the board. Like I meet with people who are like in their 30s and I don't think they know how old I am. I'm like, guys, I'm literally the same age as you are. You can do this. You have plenty of time. Stop doing what you're doing. But all these other things that are happening in their lifestyle, they're like, oh, but this is important. This is important. Is it really more important than starting to, I can't say this for you.
Right.
You have to recognize it.
In regard to the spiciness, it was because you were talking about entitlement, and I felt like I was talking to somebody who was entitled.
Yes, you have to bring it down.
Oh, I'm 50. I deserve this because you hit this magical number. Yeah. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
All right. So how do you alleviate this fear of not being able to retire well? You need to talk to a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. It's really as simple as that. You need to talk to a financial advisor because you probably don't have the means to develop that plan for what you're going to do for the next, if you only have 6 years or you only have 2 years or you only have 15 years. But if you whatever time you have till your retirement, talk to a financial advisor and they can map it out for you and say, this is where you are now. If you invest this much every month from now until this day, here's what you'll have.
Yep.
And they'll say, what do you see? What's the number that you want to live on every month?
Yep.
And they will help you map out, well, then this is what you need to put aside every month. Let compound interest do its thing. Mm-hmm. And this will get you to that number. And when you retire, you will have X amount of dollars every single month to spend. Here's
the deal though, right? And just to be clear, I am not that financial advisor. So if someone's like, hello, I would like to speak with Kim about financial advising. That ain't me. Okay. I would love to help people with the day-to-day stuff. So when your financial advisor comes to you and says, you need to put $400 away every single month. And you go, where am I going to find $400? That's where I come in. I will help you understand what, methods and strategies will help you in the day-to-day to make sure that you can actually do that and do that with consistency without going, oh my gosh, this hiccups keep happening. Your financial advisor is not going to put out those fires for you. I will. So all that to say that is exactly how you alleviate those fears around that is by getting in connection with a professional. Will it be an investment? I need to make sure that's very clear. Yes. But let's talk about how much money you've wasted over the past however many years, decades, your whole life, putting your money towards other things that do not serve you, that are not serving your future. And now that you're like face to face with your reality, now it's time to invest to actually get some additional support to help you. It is worth the investment because we are going to help you. Whoever you hire is going to help you get a 10 million steps further than if you did it if you were doing it by yourself or continuing to do the steps and habits that you've been doing for the past however many years. So understand that everything that you're doing is an investment. When you decide to invest in other things that are sitting around your house, when you decide to invest in those things, you have to think, was that a worthy investment of my time, of my energy, of my mindset? Did it give me a good ROI? Most likely, no. Maybe it lasted for a moment. It doesn't have that long lasting thing.
Hi,
so like
Dan Graham here. I know what an ROI is, but could you, what's that acronym for someone who might be listening and be like, ROI?
A return on investment.
Oh.
So that vacation you went on a year ago after you did your taxes and you got like a good amount back and you were like, I could put this towards my debt, but I'm going to go on this vacation. Was that a good ROI, right? Was that a really good, yes, it might have given you the feels, but you're right back in the same situation that you were in 6 months later. And you only have pictures to remember that experience. Where if you put that money towards, paying off something or whatever, you might be 10 steps further in investing, saving. That is going to have a longer lasting return on that investment. You decided to invest your time and delay gratification, but you're going to be better off in the long run for it.
So talk to a financial advisor and form a plan. Now, talking to my entitled brothers and sisters, you may not like the plan. The plan might not be your favorite thing. The plan might tell you, well, for the next couple of years, you can't go on a vacation. Or for the next couple of months or years, you can't eat out as much as you used to. Or you can't, have that expensive golf hobby until retirement, and then you can golf as much as you want. Kim and I love hearing people's stories, not like the bad stories, but we're watching this new show that we might talk about on the podcast or on Instagram.
How to Get Rich.
How to Get Rich on Netflix. And
so
we also watch other things. I think we were looking at something else, but we can talk about how to get rich. But basically someone had an immense amount of debt. I'm thinking about on the radio show we listened to, someone had over like $1 million worth of debt, and they were only like 27 years old.
Yeah, it was like a Dave Ramsey clip, and I was like, what?
Now, fortunately on their part, I think combined they made a little over $200,000 a year, but they still, at a young age of 27, 28, having over $1 million, and most of it being like credit card and
they had over
$300,000
like in credit card debt.
Like, it's just insane. So when we listen to these things, I say that because, when we hear these stories and we watch, How to Get Rich, and we hear people's issues, and like you and I instantly start thinking about, what if I were them? What would I do? Right? We just like putting ourselves in people's shoes and like, how would I fight to get out of this debt? What would I do? And you might not like the plan. If the plan is to eat rice and beans and to eat ramen, to eat dry cereal, you don't even get to afford milk. It's and that's the lifestyle you live. You don't get to go on trips. You got to live in your house.
Man,
and
you're painting
maybe sell your car. Like when things are bleak.
When things are bleak.
How bad do you want it? How bad do you want to retire affluent? Right? To retire in a way where wherever you want to go, whatever you want to do, with whoever you want to do it with, that's affluency, baby. That's what I want.
It's true though. You have to take those steps that might not be the sexiest. And you have to find how to live the life that makes sense for you and your future. And you recognize the sacrifices I'm making right now are going to be so worth it in the next year or so. So I am willing to do this so that next year I can do all of these things. And like when you have that perspective, it doesn't feel so much like a sacrifice where you're like, oh man, I can't do anything. And I just got to pick, like, it feels more like, oh no, I'm building my emergency fund and I'm doing all these things. I'm investing, I'm paying off my debt. And this is what I got to do to get it done. And it has a different ring to it. Yeah. Like I feel like our parents were looking at us like we were crazy when we were doing what we were doing.
We are crazy.
We are crazy, but now they're really proud of us.
They are really proud of us. I feel like a lot of these fears have to do with, not having being without, or not having enough, right? The fear of not having enough for, your bills, not having enough for retirement, So we've talked a lot about debt in these stories. And another fear that people have is a fear of accumulating debt or not being able to pay off their existing debt. So this is kind of the question we've been asking for all of these, but, where is this fear of not being able to pay your debt coming from? You need to identify the source, the root cause. Like, where is this fear coming from? Do you have a debt issue? Does your spouse have a debt issue? Did your family have issues with debt? Your mom, your best friend? Like, where's this coming that you're afraid to accumulate debt?
Yeah.
And why is that a fear for you? Like, are you someone who is impulsive and lacks self-control and you're afraid? Like, I have this condition where I see nice things and I want nice things and I buy nice things. Like I know myself. Like that's a problem that I have. Like I don't go to shopping centers because if I go into a Gap or if I go into an Old Navy, or like, I'm going to come out with stuff and I can't be sure how much, but it's going to happen. Like, is that a real, like, is self-control an issue for you? So you have this fear of accumulating debt, or paying off existing debt?
Yeah, I feel like I had a client who had $100,000 of credit card debt. And she had clothing addiction, would constantly go to the store and buy tons and tons and tons of things. And her definitely was not her fear of accumulating debt or even to pay off. It was later to how do I pay this off? But it also went down to the nitty gritty of like her anxieties around how people viewed her anxieties around, her personal experiences. Why does she feel like she has to constantly get new clothes? She was looking for attention. She was seeking approval. It felt like a high to be able to swipe that card and it constantly said approved, but yet her car was not fixed. It was about to be, what's it called? What's that word? When it gets towed.
Repoed?
Yep, it was about to get repoed. She wasn't paying her insurances. She wasn't paying for any things that she needed for her personal, health. But she was behind on all those bills, but had a wardrobe that looked beautiful. And for her, that was where her worthiness lied. And so it was hard for her. But when she paid off her debt, she paid off $100,000 by just working on herself, focusing on what she needed to do. But there was that like fear of accumulating debt again. And so when she came to talk to me, it was after she'd paid off all her debt. But she was like, I have been working so hard. I've worked on everything. I have an Airbnb. I am a tailor. Like, she's a really, really great seamstress. So she has a tailor company and she's been working with all these different things, and it's not things that were like in line with her passion. She was working so hard to get out of the debt. She didn't know how to stop the wheel from turning. And so she had this fear of accumulating debt. And she was like, I just can't do it anymore. And I don't want to do this. And I'm so scared of all the things. And so we had to kind of scale backwards. Like, you did all this work. You were running like a little like hamster in a wheel, and you did it. You did it. Like, I want you to just like recognize that you did it. Now let's move back and like, let's relax. What is your passion? What do you absolutely love to do? How can we make your life actually work for you instead of you living in this fear of constantly accumulating debt because you don't know how to manage what's in front of you? So I feel like for her, it was the emergency fund was really helpful for her. And just being able to talk through, how she was going to manage her funds and get rid of some of the additional jobs she did not need. Like, get a bigger house, like, all the things that she needed to do so that she can truly feel like she could breathe where she is. And like that I think that is really important for you to understand, like, where is this fear coming from? If I'm already accumulating debt and it's scary to look at, how did I get to this point? Where is it coming from? So there's a lot of soul searching that needs to happen in this one.
I think you kind of opened my eyes to this fear. I was listening to you and I couldn't understand it. And sometimes it's hard for me. I don't want this to sound like
no, humble. We're far removed from this.
I don't want it to sound like humble brag, but like, we know our numbers so well that this doesn't happen to us. But if we removed the budget from our life, if we removed the money management from our life, and we removed like taking cash out, to pay for groceries and stuff, and all we had was our debit card. And
oh my gosh, that makes me shudder.
Yeah, but like, if you go about your day while you're, and you go out and you swipe,
really
really,
no,
and I'm at work and I swipe, and we don't ever really talk about. Maybe we do a little bit, but if we're not tracking, I could see how someone might have a fear of accumulating debt because there's this overwhelming feeling, like you're kind of feeling right now, of like, I don't know how much we've swiped today, and I don't know how much we've spent today. And
gosh.
I hope we didn't do too much and the paychecks cover it, but we'll kind of find out when the bank tells us you overdrafted, and then we'll just kind of like do nothing until the next. Like, I could see how it can be a fear of accumulating debt if you're not tracking, if you're not managing, if you've not allocated every single dollar in your bank account to a sinking fund or to a fund.
Especially
I can see that now that you've said that.
Right. And for this particular client, she had several streams of income, right? So she has money coming in from different like places. And so it's just kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, just kind of like, oh, this goes here, because that's where this, like how much additional steps are you taking to pay a bill? Like that's so much extra thinking and anxiety that you're creating for yourself. I think it was in that TV show we were watching on Netflix where he was like, I have like 15 different spending accounts. And he's like, why? And he's like, I feel like if I have money in lots of different places, I feel like I have money. Like I always have places. And he's like, no, you're causing yourself more anxiety and overwhelm with all these accounts. You don't need that many. Especially without actual purposes. So yeah, that gives me some serious heart palpitations thinking about that.
Right. So
but that's how a lot of people are living.
Then to alleviate that fear, you absolutely need to get on a budget, know your numbers, know your expenses, know your income, track, and know everything that you and your spouse is doing. And that's going to alleviate that fear. The other thing you can do is develop an emergency fund, right? It is recommended that you have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund
of expenses
to protect you.
Right. Let's talk about that because I have to say this every single time I'm talking to someone about emergency funds. Your expenses. This is the reason why it's so important to know your numbers, because I did a webinar last week and I asked the same question. What do you think you need when you say 3 to 6 months? Do you think expenses or salary? There were many people who said salary. No, because let's just say this. If I gave you a salary for this month, do you really think that every single dollar of your salary goes to only your bills? No, it goes to a lot of... I hope not. It goes to a lot of that additional crap, all the miscellaneous spending. So when you're talking about your 3 to 6 months of expenses, we're talking about the necessary expenses to keep lights on, heat and AC in the house, making sure that you have food on the table, not bougie food, y'all. Okay. Like food on the table, making sure that you have necessary subscriptions. Okay. Internet at this nowadays, necessary subscription, necessary thing. But you want to make sure that all those necessary things are there, have that number, total that up, that multiply by 3 or multiply by 6. There's your emergency fund. That's your starter fund. So I just need to make sure I make that very clear for people. We'll do again, more of a deep dive in our later calls, but
probably during our budget boot camp. But when you have that emergency fund, it's going to protect you from those debts.
Yeah.
Like if you have a month or a week where something in life just pops up and you would have normally gone to the credit card and accumulated that debt, you have an emergency fund to protect you. It's a guardrail to protect you from going into debt. So that will alleviate anxiety as well.
Yep.
So, think about how you can manage those debts now to ease your anxiety. We talked about having an emergency fund, but also just managing. Right? We're going to say it for every fear we talk about. You've got to manage well. You've got to track. You've got to know your numbers.
Everything, y'all.
Here's another quote. If you're willing to do only what's easy, life's going to be hard.
Yep.
But if you're willing to do what's hard, life will be easy.
I equated this to, I went on a walk with my girls the other week down to one of their favorite playgrounds. And as we were walking, I chose to go a different way that was a little bit more serene since I was walking with them. I didn't want them near like traffic. And if both of us are walking, it's different. But I was like, let me just go this way. And they were like, Mom, this is a different way. And they were giving me all sorts of lip. And I was like, just follow me. Regardless, it was a smoother walk and it was a lot less like, crazy. It was shaded and it was nice. It was beautiful outside. And it was such a smoother walk to get there. Less traffic. But think about the other way. Like there's a lot more traffic, a lot more like bumps. There's a lot more like, hills and other to get to the same location. And I just feel like this is, if you're willing to do the hard work, the walk, the journey to get from where you are to your ideal of wealth will be easy. And so you might have to endure some of those like awkward conversations and awkward things that have to happen to get you to that place. But if you don't, And if you're only willing to do what's easy, life will always be hard. You're always going to find yourself like tripping over something, or, you know, the hills and valleys are going to seem so much more steep than if you're just willing to just do the hard work up front.
You know what's easy?
What?
Borrowing money.
Yes. And that's why they make it so easy.
Borrowing money is
That's
easy,
why they make it so easy.
but it makes life hard because it catches up with you. But if you do the hard thing, which is try not to borrow money, I get it, things happen. But like if you try not to borrow money and you actually try to make your own money, you know, and save your own money.
Delay gratification.
Yeah, delay gratification. Then in the long run, life's going to be a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Right? I'm so thankful for 23-year-old Kim and Dan.
Legit.
Who did the hard thing and paid off those student loans. I'm thankful for them doing the hard thing and living with your mom and dad. That was hard. I'm thankful for living in that 500 square foot little apartment to help us pay off our debts. Like, there's a lot of hard things that we did. And right now, life is pretty good.
Thanks, Kim and Dan, from 2012, 13, 14.
Wow, that felt like you said that number and I was like, man.
You're right. It's like 2014.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I don't like that you said that.
23? Yeah.
I feel old. You know how you say a number and you're like, it's like I saw a post the other day that was like, you know, when you think about a 20-year-old car, you envision in your mind something from like the late 80s, early 90s, but it's actually just a 2003. And you're like,
wait a second. Wait a second.
That's a 20-year-old car.
Wait a second. I graduated in 06. That's not cool at all.
Oh, man.
I look at those, there's some TikTok videos where they do like old videos of like, here's what high school looked like in 2004. And I'm like, those are normal people. What are you talking about? Like, they look normal, but I'm sure to someone who's like in high school now, they're like, what are these ancient
wearing
people?
Those like tight Abercrombie and Fit
Jinko
whatever,
jeans.
like polos or whatever. My goodness.
Do you remember South Pole?
What do you mean? I was South
God.
Pole.
Oh,
Jinko and South Pole were me.
I used to take your South Pole.
And then I met
sweatshirts.
you and you changed my life forever.
Please. But I would take your South Pole sweatshirts and wear them home.
All right. We're moving on to our final common fear around money. Fear of making poor financial decisions or investments that could lead to financial ruin.
Where is that coming from? I actually have a client who's dealing with this right now.
In a way, I think I can relate. You know, some of the other ones I could see how they make sense. But this one, I feel like, you know, you work so hard.
Yeah.
And then the idea that you could do something like invest in Enron, you know, and it all just crumples beneath your feet, right? There's a story in, maybe it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where during the Great Depression, you know, a lot of people, this is before banks had the whole like, you know, where they protected up to $250,000 of your money, right? Like a lot of people couldn't get access to their money. They couldn't get their money. They lost their money. But there were people that got rich during the Great Depression.
Yep.
You know, that was a thing. And there's actually a story of a guy who got rich, but then later, you know, I guess he got caught that bug where he was like, well, I did it so well now, like, let me just keep going and keep, you know, and he eventually lost it all and unfortunately took his life, you know,
as a result.
And left his family,
yeah,
you know, without money or without a father.
You know what? I think that was in The Psychology of Money.
Was that The Psychology of Money?
I remember that story.
But I get that fear, like making a financial decision that would lead to ruin for you or your family. Like that is legitimately scary.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I understand this fear as well too. And I get this way too, because we've done very well for ourselves. And I am sometimes so afraid, even in my business, like this is going to be the thing that just like completely dismantles everything that we've worked for. So there's a couple of things that I do, but also other fears that come from this are like, what if I don't have enough for life insurance? What if I don't have enough for all these other different types of insurances that I haven't really, you know, tapped into, thought about, and even like other types of like protections, I should say. And that can be really overwhelming. There could be a lot of fear there. And so what you do, so you have to think, where is this coming from? Why are you feeling this way? Are you feeling that, like for me, I can say like, I do have a chronic, and I can I know exactly when it's going to happen. As soon as something good happens, I'm like, oh, the other shoe's going to drop at any moment now. So don't enjoy it too much. And you have to kind of like snap yourself out of it.
Don't worry, Cinderella, your man will always find you. If that shoe drops, I'll pick it up and find you. Don't you
I was
worry.
like, what? And then I recognized what you were doing. Yeah. So you have to realize like, okay, let me not worry about the financial decisions that were coming up. Oh, but let me go back to the job one. And then I know you have like a list of things that you want to say about how you can help yourself alleviate from this fear. I have a list of jobs that I would do if I had to go back to a job. I have a list, especially now. Y'all, you want to talk about the most perfect time to like switch jobs. There are so many remote jobs out there. So many. It's insane.
But not teaching, so don't do that.
Not teaching. Don't do that one. Be passionate. I have a list of remote work or a list of jobs, a list of things that I would do that I would fall back on if I was like, yo, this is not it. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not passionate about what I'm doing anymore. I need to take a break. I'm just going to go to a 9-to-5 for a couple years. I have a list of like things that I would do in my mind of like, okay, so that helps me alleviate the fear that I could not make a poor financial like investment, because what I would do is I would just go make more money so then I could like recuperate the investment. So that's something that I personally do. But what's your list?
For me, I'm more or less not going to talk about where it's coming from, but poor financial decisions in my mind are rush decisions. When you don't take time to stop and think about what could or could not happen and you just do it. I get that we talk about risk and risk management, and taking risks are important in building wealth, but there's a difference between an educated risk where you've actually put some thought into it and then just, a plain old stupid, blatantly rushed decision that could either go well or not, right? So going slow has an incredibly low risk rate.
Tortoise in the hare.
And that has to be our story, right? I know that we did things quickly in terms of like we've paid off debts quickly, but we are 12 years into our marriage. And I feel like a lot of the things that we talked about in our early days and early years of our marriage were kind of just now coming into fruition.
Like, let's just talk about this, right? We're talking about like rush decisions being poor financial decisions. Daniel and I have never lived together in a single family home. We've only lived in places that are less than
apartments and condos,
less than 1,000 square feet.
Yes, the largest place we ever lived in was our very first home. It was an apartment and it was 1,100 square feet.
Yep.
And from there we went to 500 square feet, and then we lived with your family, and now we live in 1,000 square feet flat.
With 2 children. And the newest car we've ever had is a 2009.
Yeah. And we bought that in 2016, 2017.
So we don't have new cars. Like, you want to talk about like these things that are slow. We're not trying to be flashy. These are like slow decisions. These are intentional decisions that to the outside society would say, this is not where you should, quote unquote, be as a person of your stature, having a family unit. You should have the house.
You should not be in a 2-bed condo.
You should not be in a 2-bedroom condo, because that means that something is wrong with you, right? There's all these things that tell us that where we should or should not be.
Can I say that's why
we don't care?
I hate the notion of the American dream.
Agreed.
Because everyone is chasing this notion, and it's like, you got to find out what works best for you.
Right.
Like, not everyone has to own a single family home. That doesn't have to be your story. You can be incredibly wealthy. You can live an affluent life and not own a home.
You could rent your whole life and be perfectly content.
But society has brainwashed you to think, I'm not successful unless I drive a Tesla, unless I have a single family home, unless I have this wardrobe or I drink Starbucks coffee every morning. Like that is not the definition of
wealth,
success,
right?
Right?
Right.
You have to decide, what is affluence for you?
And we said that in our mini episode, or like in our first one, like, what does affluence mean to you? What is it? What does it feel like? What does it look like? I don't really, like, I think the Everyday Millionaires, I think, is one of my favorite things to talk about, because when he tells me about all the stats that he's reading, that like, how much they're shopping or how much whatever, it really brings it back into focus that the people that you view as like, oh my gosh, they must be super, super wealthy. That's what it is. Well, I think I read Everyday Millionaire. You read
with Chris Hogan, that's Everyday Millionaire.
But the person that you're looking at, that you're like, oh my gosh, they're so wealthy, they probably got it all together. I'm telling you, they don't. I'm telling you, they don't. The person who like looks like, wow, they have a really good job, but why are they driving that car? Why are they? Those, most likely, those are your millionaires.
If you're listening and you're looking for a woman or you're looking for a man, no, let me say I'm looking for a man. All right, because this is
very confused by this statement.
No, just listen. All right, I know where I'm going with this. Okay. All right, and it's not about poor financial decisions. If you're at the playground,
oh yeah,
and you see a man, and he's got khaki pants on, and some New Balances, and he's got maybe like his shirt tucked into his pants, and that guy right there, that guy's wealthy.
That's a millionaire. That's affluence right there.
Because according to Millionaire Next Door, like, most millionaires don't look like you see on television. Those celebrities that you see are a very low percentage.
They really are.
Of the representative population of affluent people, right?
Yep.
Most millionaires are probably barely millionaires. Like, they're probably like one, like, in their assets, right? And all in their house, their cars, their investments, whatever. It's not that they make $1 million every year.
Because that doesn't actually define a millionaire.
They might only make $90K every year. They might only make $80K every year or $100K. But it's because of what they've saved up over time in their investments and their assets that they're a millionaire. And they're probably, they got to be a millionaire because they managed their money well.
Right.
And they didn't spend their money. If you have $1 million and you spend $1 million, you're not a millionaire.
No, even if you make $1 million, you're not a millionaire. According to standards, right? What defines you, the bank, whatever, defines a millionaire as a person who has $1 million in assets. If you make $1 million, but you have $800,000 in debt, you're not a millionaire, right? So it's not the amount of money that you're making. It's what you do with the money and how you're managing your assets. That's what makes a millionaire. So that's like a common like misconception. But regardless, like,
so if you're looking for a man or you're looking for a woman who's managing their money well, it's probably not the person that's spending all of their money on things, right? It's probably that person that's not spending all their money on stuff and they're managing it well. So they might not look like $1 million, but they bet you they have $1 million.
Bet you bottom dollar.
Now, financial decisions or investments that could lead to ruin. If you get caught up in the American dream that we talked about and you buy the biggest, nicest house on the block, you could end up house poor. And that could be a decision that ruins your family.
Yep. That's
right?
a poor financial decision.
Especially if we have another issue like 2008, 2009, and then your house is underwater and you're like, well, I can't afford the payments and now I need to sell.
Yep.
But now it's not worth as much as when I bought it for, because everything's inflated right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So you're digging yourself into an even deeper hole. So for sure, make sure the decisions that you're making are responsible.
Right.
Don't buy more house than you can afford. Don't buy expensive car that you can't afford, right? Buy things within means, save up, put down a good down payment on your house or your car. Like, just make smart, not rushed decisions. Take your time, think through everything, sleep on your decisions, and that's going to help you be successful and not make these poor decisions.
Yep, exactly.
And also, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
Single stock is very risky.
Yep.
You can win with single stock, but 80% of people don't. So
for mutual funds.
You can do single stock, but I wouldn't put all my money into it. I'd put a portion of it into it and play that game and see what happens.
But see, I wouldn't even do that. This is a whole nother conversation. I wouldn't do that unless I was fully funded in everything that I wanted to do. I was investing in all these other places. Then, and only then, when I have additional income,
money to play with.
I have money to play with. Let's play that game.
Love that.
But that's not something I'm going to do. That's more risk. And I want the least amount of risk that I have to incur.
I'm going to wrap up with a quote here. For most people, the reason they don't win financially is because the pain of losing money is far greater than the joy of being rich.
How true is that?
Fear, right?
People right? That's like entrepreneurship 101. If I go to you and I have my high ticket offer and I offer it to you and you go, ooh, I just don't know. Like, okay, I'm going to insure you, right? Because my clients are making good money, but they didn't know where it's going. So they're constantly looking at their bank account like, what the heck? And I'm like, trust me, I'm going to help you understand where your money is going, and you will be rich. You will be wealthy. You will know where your money's going. You will feel so good about your finances. And don't you know how many of them, the reason they're not winning financially is the pain of losing that money is so far greater than the joy of being rich. Part of that is because they just have no idea. They are not able to tangibly touch, see. They're not a part of that vision yet. I might see it. They don't see it. And so it's like losing money is something that's tangible. But the joy of being rich is not something I can physically see or touch yet. And that is the fear that keeps you in bondage.
Here's why I chose this quote, because I think for some people, they would hear the fear of making poor financial decisions or investments could lead to financial ruin. That sounds all about taking big risks, right? And how that could be a bad thing. And in this quote, it says the reason people don't win is because the pain of losing money. So it almost sounds like if you play it safe. So here's where I'm getting at. To me, a poor financial decision is not always, buying that expensive house or investing in single stock. A poor financial decision to me could also be playing it safe.
It could be.
Right? Like, let's flip that around. The biggest financial mistake you might ever make is playing it safe.
Yeah. And not risking.
Not trying to start that own business. Not trying to get that promotion. Not trying to do the hard thing and cutting expenses or saving additional dollars, right? Playing it safe, that's not going to help you build wealth.
Right.
That's just going to leave you comfortable in the now and
mediocre.
Uncomfortable in the later. So making a poor financial decision is not just, I bought a super expensive house, right? It's also not cutting expenses, not saving, not doing those everyday things. So for most people, the reason why they don't win financially is because the pain, the fear of losing money is a lot greater than the joy of being rich. You got to take risks. You've got to.
Yep. And you got to kind of map out for yourself, what would that look like to be quote unquote rich? What does that look like for me? And how bad do I want it?
So if you're struggling with money fears, it may be helpful to take practical steps to improve your financial situation. Some strategies that could be useful include creating a budget, reducing expenses, increasing your income, seeking advice from financial advisors or counselors. It's important to address your underlying emotional or psychological issues that may be contributing to your money fears, such as anxiety or stress. Seeking support from friends, family, and a therapist can be helpful in managing these feelings.
Our CTA for today, this is what we want you guys to do. An actionable step is to identify those money fears, and maybe your partner's money fears. So
have that conversation.
How many times have we said that about communication?
We're talking.
You need to talk. What are the things you are afraid of in reference to money? What is the thing that you're afraid of, and why? And it might take some time, but it's important to start that conversation. And our affluent archive for today.
Right. Well, I wanted to say that.
Okay, go for it.
One of the main things that we've been talking about with Safe Place, with money and communication, all of this, like, you need to communicate regularly.
Yeah.
It needs to be a consistent thing that happens time and time and time again. So if my call to action is identify your fears and your partners and talk about it, that's what you need to do, right? You need to communicate regularly.
Right.
Or if they're looking at you and they're like, dude, we just talked. Yep.
We're talking about communication.
We're talking again.
Literally, it's in the intro.
The more you do it,
the more you talk to each other,
the easier it's going to get.
That communication is kind of a cornerstone into what we're talking about. If you don't communicate, you're not going to get anywhere.
Right. And what did we just say? financial decisions that could leave you in ruin, not communicating with your partner, that's a financial decision that's going to leave you in ruin.
Oh my gosh, in
right?
so many ways.
Because we talked about being yoked up. We talked about the power of communication and working and pulling together with your partner. If you're not doing that, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you are really just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yep. You absolutely
Your wealth
are.
potential, gone.
Gone. Like you're not going to be able to do as much as you could be if you are not working together.
Hey, talking about potential, our affluent archive, a little nugget, a little wisdom today. Untamed fear consumes potential.
That's a good one.
Untamed fear.
Notice untamed here, right? Because fear, like we said, is always going to be there. It's human nature. The fear is not just magically going to leave.
Gotta manage.
But you got to be able to tame it. Be able to say, we have to manage it. We know it's here. I acknowledge that you're here, but you are not stronger than me. I am stronger than the fear. I am able to do this and reach my potential. But when you don't tame that fear and you let it consume you, it is consuming your future. It is consuming your dreams. It is consuming the things that you would love to have in your future, the marriage that you want to have, the life you want to have, the home, the car, the whatever it is, the vacations, whatever it is that you want to have. It's consuming all of those things because you are listening to the fear. That's deep, bro.
That was good.
That was deep.
That was a good affluent archive, right?
That was a really good
I made
archive.
that.
Yeah. That's a good one, babe.
4 words.
4 words. Super powerful.
Well, guys, this has been our podcast on fears around money. Thank you guys so much for listening today. This is my wife, Kimberly Graham. She is the CEO of KG Financial. You can follow her on Instagram at KG Millionaire Coach. You can follow us at the Affluent Marriage Pod on Instagram. I'm Dan Graham, the educator. Thank you guys again. Go live in love, walk in wealth. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.